Hello, welcome back. Alex Phillips here with you on Talk until 1 o'clock. Now, I don't know about you, but watching some of those scenes taking place on American university campuses rather sent a chill down my spine. Yes, it's good that students should protest. Yes, it's good that students are politically engaged. But when you have scenes of students setting up encampments on some of the university's most prestigious universities, that is, in America's campuses, and having riot police have to storm in with tear gas, having projectiles thrown, scenes, frankly, you have reporters there in hard hats and bulletproof vests. It looked like a war zone. Have things gone too far? What is going on? Joe Biden has said this can't happen. I'm not going to be swayed by this. The US is going to remain a staunch ally of Israel, while, of course, also having some pretty tough words to say to Israel and what's going on over in Gaza. But those scenes, they were pretty ugly, weren't they? They were pretty frightening to look at, to think that young people are so engulfed in this ongoing row about that devastating conflict in the Middle East, that they would not just disrupt education to that extent, but behave in a way that borders on the criminal. Well, is that soon going to be coming to our own universities? Or some people would say, yes, they will, because a group called Youth Demand, or young people demanding that Tories and the Labour Party commit to a two-way arms embargo on Israel, and are planning to hold similar protests at various UK universities, including Russell Group universities, which are some of the leading universities and establishments in the country. Well, let's now speak to Ella Ward, who is a spokesperson at Youth Demand. I'm delighted to say she's joining us on the show to explain what's going on, what she plans to do and why she thinks it needs to happen. Hi, Ella, how are you doing?
Morning, Alex. How? Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me on as well.
No, good. It is my absolute pleasure. Now, first of all, let's start off with what are you planning to do and why?
So, like you said, we're from Youth Demand, which is a non-violent group of young people to call on a two-way arms embargo on Israel and also no new oil and gas licences. And we're doing that because Tory and Labour are both driving genocide. The political system we've got at the moment is totally broken, and young people have realised that, and we're demanding better. So we're going to be engaging in non-violent resistance, and we're joining lots of other student protest groups to set up encampments at different universities, and we'll also be taking action in London this summer.
Why do you think that it's necessary to have a two-way arms embargo with Israel? How is that going to benefit this country, or indeed change the situation in the Middle East?
Well, a genocide's happening right now in Israel, in Palestine.
The UN haven't called it a genocide.
The International Court of Justice has called it a genocide. We can argue over the words if you like, but essentially,
how's this going to change the situation?
15,000 children have been killed, Alex, and they're being killed with weapons that are being made in the UK.
Okay, no, actually, hold on, Ella, what is the percentage of Israel's armaments that we are selling to them? How many weapons from the UK are going there? What percentage?
Look, as students in the UK, the things that we have the ability to change is what our government do.
I'm glad you're standing up for things you want to change. What I'm asking you is how not going to tutorials and lessons, you pay very high tuition fees, how that's going to change what's going on in the Middle East. Because I'll tell you the percentage of Israel's arms that come from the UK is 0.9%. That is from the Campaign Against Arms Trade, whose, I would imagine, whose position you pretty much support. Now, not only is it only 0.9%, these are dual-use goods, which means they're not actually arms. They're things like widgets and buttons and things that could be used on a computer as much as it could in a tank. So how is locking yourself up on campus, disrupting people's education you pay a lot of money for, when it's only 0.9% of their weapons and it's dual-use, going to change anything?
Well, that's 0.9% too high, frankly. And it's not just these widgets that you talk about. We know that drones are going over. We know that engines for drones are being made in this country. And we need to say that we can't have UK-made bombs committing genocide.
But it's not UK-made bombs, is it?
Do you not think that we shouldn't be killing 15,000 children with weapons?
But we're
made
not.
in this
We're not,
country?
because I've just told you the statistics of what we are selling to Israel. So it isn't what you're saying at all, is it? It is a far cry from that. And actually, they essentially provide us with far more technology that protects us in terms of things like cyber warfare. So if we have a two-way embargo, then we're actually preventing ourselves from defending ourselves when we're really not sending bombs and missiles over to Israel in the first place.
Look, Alex, it's not a complicated demand. Israel is committing a genocide, and we need to stop arming them. It's not complicated.
Well, fine. If we stop selling the 0.9% of widgets and button covers that we're giving them, then that's not really going to change the picture of what's going on in Israel at all. What it is going to do is prevent you from getting an education. On that matter, I'd quite like to inquire where you're getting your information from. What are your sources of news?
Well, I get news from lots of different places.
Such as?
I can send you some information over afterwards.
No, I'm just asking you where are you getting inspired to do this campaign? What are you reading? What information are you getting that makes you want to give up your education, lock yourself on a campus when you pay a lot of money and privilege to go to a university in the Western world? I want to know what it is you're reading that makes you want to do that when I think it's pretty balmy and isn't going to change anything. So explain to me.
Alex, I think that you've managed to kind of disconnect from the fact that what I've read is that 35,000 people have been killed. That's
let's stick with that.
Fact.
Where do those? Okay, is it an absolute fact? Where do those statistics come from?
Well, those statistics are not disputed. Those statistics are coming from major news sources.
No, those statistics are coming from Hamas. They're the people who give the statistics. And how many of the 35,000 that Hamas say have been killed are militants, and how many are members of the public?
Well, 15,000 of them are children, Alex. And, the fact that we're arguing over numbers at the moment suggests that you think that there's a reasonable number of people to be killed.
No,
and
what I think there isn't. I'm not saying that
maybe
at all.
It's higher, maybe it's lower. There is not an acceptable number of people.
What I'm asking, if you're going to jeopardise
a genocide,
if you're going to jeopardise your education, what I was asking you is, if I was going to make a sacrifice that was going to potentially affect my future, waste me thousands of pounds that I'm going to have to pay back in tuition fees, disrupt life on campus for other students, I would want to be sure that I'm basing it on something that I understand and I have researched. So I'm asking you where you get your information. It's very simple. You can tell me, name me the sources. What's inspiring you? Where are you reading this stuff?
The information I'm getting is from, like I've said, the major news outlets. These are not disputed facts. These are these is what the numbers. And you're talking about disrupting education. There are no universities left in Gaza. Disruption is absolutely essential to create change, and it's an enormous privilege to go to university, and we need to be using that education that we're getting to actually fight for what's right. And what's right is young people realising that a genocide's happening and young people are demanding better.
So how about, if you want to use your education to change the world, is it not better to be in a lecture hall than camping out in tents like Swampy about a situation that you doing that is not going to change?
We're in non-violent resistance. This is how change works. Change comes through people standing up, and it's happened throughout history time and time again. This is how we create change, and students have always been at the forefront of that, and we're seeing this again. There's an international student rebellion, and that's really exciting, and this is how change can start happening.
Do you think Benjamin Netanyahu is going to be watching some students sitting in tents in Leeds University and think, well, that's it, I better change my entire military policy in Gaza? Do you think you doing that is going to suddenly make Hamas release those hostages? Do you think you sitting in tents on your campus is going to suddenly make people in Palestine who support Hamas not want to see the destruction of Israel, to make them actually suddenly like Jewish people and want to live in harmony and forge a two-state solution? Do you think sitting in a tent instead of going into lectures is going to change a centuries-long, complex, ideologically, geopolitically driven maelstrom that's taking place in the Middle East that's not been able to be resolved in decades?
Alex, you're acting like you don't understand how protest works. The individual university encampments have demands of their universities. They apply pressure to the university through causing this disruption, and they engage in negotiations, and then the universities meet their demands. It's the same way with youth demand. We engage in disruption.
What are you demanding of your university? What are you demanding of your university?
I mean, universities have different demands, but with Youth Demand in Leeds, we're part of the Leeds Students Against Apartheid Coalition, and we've got a few different demands, which include cutting ties with BAE systems and cutting ties with Israeli universities, and calling on the university to support students and to support Palestine.
So what you're saying is, okay, if your university cuts ties with BAE Systems, one of the biggest employers in this country that creates all sorts of things for the defence industry, which people would argue goes a long way to protecting this country when we live in a very difficult period where we could be on the brink of global war. What you're essentially saying is, because you've got your belief systems, you don't want engineering students, you don't want aeronautical students to have degrees or have educations where they can then go and enter these industries and work towards making the world a safer place. That's okay. They shouldn't have that at all, because 0.9% of buttons go to Israel, and you don't think that's right?
Alex, I'm not saying that, and you know I'm not saying that.
Well, you're saying the university should cut ties with BAE Systems. You're also saying it should cut ties with Israeli universities. What on earth have Israeli students ever done to you that they can't benefit from coming over and sharing in research with students at your university? Do you not like Jewish people? Have you got a problem with Israelis?
We need to not be supporting an Israeli state that is committing a genocide. Like I said, this 35,000 people have been murdered. These are innocent people, innocent children that are being murdered with weapons made in the UK. You know, we've got a failing political system, and politics is totally broken. Tory and Labour are driving genocide, and we're seeing young people. We're recognising that, and we're demanding better.
Ella,
and we need to stop sending weapons. And we need to
Ella,
stop
I think your intentions are very good. I think you're a lovely girl. I do think the 0.9% of dual-use goods that are going to Israel can't exactly be qualified as sending weapons and missiles over there. And I'd rather wish, actually, you'd spend more time learning things at university rather than living on TikTok and then deciding you want to go live in a tent instead of turning up to lectures. But thank you ever so much for coming on the programme. I wish you all the very best. Right, we're going to take a short break now while we ruminate over why our young people seem to have some pretty strange ideas about how the world works. Back after this. It's been a pleasure. 2 more hours left.